Hey, I'm Jared Stays, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. It is March 28th, 2023, and on this Tuesday, spring is springing. Today, we're talking development. Now, this episode was recorded before the Tuesday hearing on the proposed District Detroit project, so maybe while you're listening to this, I'll be watching that meeting. But there is so much more getting built and to talk about. So, to help sort through this development news, Robin Runyan from Urbanize Detroit is here. She has had her eye on what's been happening here for years. So good to talk to you, Robin. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Jer.
Oh, of course. And if people don't know, a lot of these stories you can find over at detroit.urbanize.city. Aside this following a bunch of development, I know, Robin, you've got quite a lot of experience covering the city and the region with development. So let's just jump into it. There have been a lot of stories in the last couple of weeks, a lot of things happening that I kind of want to break down. And let's start with the Book Tower, which is such a cool historic building that has a ton of work been done with Bedrock and the Gilbert folks and everything. And I'll just tell you, like, the first time I saw it cleaned, I was stunned as somebody who actually used to like have a contract job in there and go into it like in the early 2000s when it was still open. And then even just see the exterior cleaning, I was stunned. And then there's all this other news too, right?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned I've been doing this for a while. This was one of the first big projects that started like in early 2016 when I was starting out at Curbed. And to see it kind of where it is now, it took a while to get there. You know, it's been a long process, but I'm really excited about this project. I know a lot of attention this year has been put on Michigan Central, which it absolutely deserves. But I don't want people to sleep on Book Tower. Like, this is an exceptional restoration of just historic details throughout. So they're going to have 229 residential units. They're going to start pre-leasing next month. I know there is an affordable component to it, but I'm just going to throw out there, I'm guessing the market rate ones will be pretty pricey.
Well, rehab like this is not cheap.
Yeah, I mean, these are pretty nice units. It's a beautiful building. I think the building itself is going to be a destination for people. There will be a hotel element as well, a Roost apartment hotel, which are kind of like extended stay rooms, 117 of those. Dining options, kind of meeting and event space. There's this cool like indoor-outdoor event space on the 13th floor that's going to be really nice. One of the things I like when they sent out this information earlier this week is that there's this beautiful atrium in the middle. Like, all this marble has been restored and everything. It's like this 3-story atrium. And then there's this beautiful glass dome skylight that was covered forever. And what they've done to it is, it makes my heart very happy.
Well, I mean, I remember seeing that skylight. You can see the pictures over on Urbanize. I remember years ago when I was a contractor there, I would actually go upstairs onto the floors you're not supposed to go to where all the pigeons were. Because basically it was a pigeon sanctuary on that third floor. And there would be this glass atrium that used to go all the way down to the bottom. But in the intervening years, everything had gotten kind of blocked off. You know, the second story was built in those old times as additional retail space and things like that. But, you know, vacancy at that time around, you know, the turn of the 2000s was a super high thing in downtown Detroit. And so lots of floors were mothballed. And so you go and you see this atrium kind of all dark. And then the idea of even being able to step in and see them actually repair this thing is stunning, Robin.
Yeah, it really is. And the cool thing is that they say that they're going to have a bar in that area. So it seems like it's going to be kind of out in the open, but during the day, they're going to have coffee and tea service. At night, they'll have cocktails, which I think is so cool. Like, just to go get tea, you know, at a really beautiful historic building. I just think it sounds really cool. I'm excited about that. From the outside, once they started cleaning that building, it was incredible because for so long, I feel like the Book Tower was kind of seen as an ugly building, which it's a weird looking building. You know, it's just the design of it's a little strange, but it was dirty. It was just plain dirty for so long. So the fact that, you know, when they cleaned it up on the exterior, it just looks like a completely different building now.
One of my favorite comments about it was that it looks like a gigantic version of the Ghostbusters headquarters, especially when it was all dirty and kind of grimy. It definitely gave that kind of spook vibe, but the vibe completely changed when they cleaned it up. And, for years and years, heck, for generations, that's the only way that people knew that building. Like the last time this building was this clean was more than a lifetime ago.
Yeah. When the Book brothers built these buildings on Washington Avenue so long, like 100 years ago, they intended to make this like the Fifth Avenue of Detroit. They did the Book Cadillac, of course, and then across the street, the Book Tower. There was supposed to be another tower that was going to be even taller, but probably a good thing that didn't happen, I'm just going to say. But it'll give that really historic feel that so many people want to see and want to experience. We have these beautiful buildings that not every city has. I'm really excited about it opening. So the hotel will open in the summer, and we'll start to see it opening over the next 4 or 5 months.
I wonder if the powers that be will let us do a Daily Detroit event there. I feel like that just needs to happen.
Oh, I'm sure they would. Yeah. I can talk to someone.
It would be excellent to do. And if you want to go to something like that, dailydetroit@gmail.com. All right, let's move to Corktown. It's called Perennial Corktown, and we're not talking about flowers, are we?
No, we're not. This one has been under construction for a little while now. If you've been down on Michigan Avenue lately, or the past year and a half, you've seen two kind of big developments right along the street. This one that we're talking about today is right across from the old Tiger Stadium. It's going to bring a bunch of apartments that are about to go up for pre-lease pretty quickly this spring. So 188 apartments and then 7 townhomes. Another cool thing about this is that they're going to have a lot of retail space, and the first tenant is a grocery store. It's called Corktown Market. It'll have groceries, deli, a coffee bar. It's a small footprint grocery store, but I think it's going to bring a lot of value to the neighborhood. It's going to be great for the people who live in the development and also the surrounding neighborhood, just so they can stop in and pick up whatever they need.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of options in Corktown, to be fair, to pick up some food, but it's something when it's right there in the building, especially for those people that are living right there, like right upstairs. It just makes things a lot easier if you can just grab a couple of vegetables or something like that. I'm reading on your site something like 2,000 square feet. So that's not the biggest footprint, but it's not the smallest.
Yeah, so this building, it's being led by Oxford Capital Group and Hunter Pasture Homes. It's not the most architecturally significant building in Detroit. Like, the facade's a little typical, but it's going to add, a lot of density. It's going to add a lot of traffic to the area. There's going to be a lot more people, a lot more stuff going on down there. Right down Michigan Avenue, the same developers are also working on the Godfrey Hotel, which will open this summer. And that hotel, I think, is in such a great position considering what's going on right now. It's right in between Michigan Central and downtown. So you're going to get the people who are coming in from Ford. You're going to get people who have events at Cobo or just events downtown. So that's going to bring 227 rooms, a bunch more event space, stuff like that. So a lot going on down there.
For sure. You can see that, Godfrey, when you're driving up Michigan. It's kind of crazy to see just kind of like this wall of building happening where there wasn't one before. But, Corktown used to have a lot of density to it. I mean, there were some apartment buildings, but a lot of it was more single family residential or duplexes and things like that. This is something that's going to bring a lot of density back to Corktown. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in it.
Yeah, I really like looking at, especially like the aerial photos of the old Tiger Stadium, because it was so different back then, like back in the 40s and 50s. There were so many homes all around it where some of it's been filled in, some of it has not been filled in, but it's good to see so many residential units coming back there. There's going to be another one coming to the old Tiger Stadium too that is an affordable housing predominantly that should be starting up pretty soon.
Well, and that residential component is so key. Like, I think with all of the changes with the pandemic and everything, in an earlier episode, Devin kind of mentioned that Corktown really feels like an epicenter, or kind of the epicenter, to look at in the city of Detroit going forward for development. Would you agree with that?
Sure. There was recently, it was when Slows, they were changing ownership. I think they put an Instagram post up or something of that block in Corktown before they redid it. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see, kind of how that slowly happened. I mean, it happened very slowly at first, but then once more developers started coming in, it just grows and grows. And you've seen that in Midtown as well. But I think as we start kind of moving outward, we're going to keep seeing that. Like once a few businesses, kind of move in, once they get some more people in there, then developers, feel like it's a better investment to get in on there.
Yeah. As with most change, it happens slowly at first and then all at once.
Right.
Now, this happened a little bit ago, but you haven't been on since, and I wanted to mention it. Capitol Park building that has been, frankly, to me, an eyesore. To me, it looks like a heating grate from the 1970s and not a good-looking one. In Capitol Park next to Prime and Proper, on that block of Griswold between State Street and Michigan, there is a building that used to be a real looker, designed, I believe, by Albert Kahn, and then this facade was just hit with the ugly stick. But there are plans.
Yeah, I don't really know what they were thinking back then because it's just a flat granite. It looks like a big granite countertop, and I think that's it actually in the comments here. Somebody said the commenters had a lot to say about this one. But I feel like, again, Capitol Park was one of those sections of downtown, 10 years ago, it looked a lot different, but developers started coming in and redoing these buildings, and for the most part, they've been really, really fantastic ones too. Just beautiful restorations. So this building is going to go through a beautiful rehab. It's 7 floors right now, but they're going to add an additional 11 floors to it and redesign take that awful flat design up front, which has zero light coming in, by the way. I don't really know how that worked or why they did that, but you can see the rendering that Kramer Design Group has put together. Really, really beautiful. It looks like a historic, especially the windows at the bottom. It just looks more like a historic building. It looks more like that Art Deco time frame when it was built. Karp & Associates is leading this one. They've done buildings in Capitol Park before, so I have good faith in them to get this one done as well.
Yeah, it's something where I remember Capitol Park when I was a kid. We would take the 25 Jefferson bus down to Capitol Park because that's where the bus turnaround was. I remember when there was a McDonald's. There's like an empty restaurant storefront that's kind of like right at the edge of Capitol Park, just past the dog park next to the Book Cadillac. It was discussed at one time for like a really crazy leaning building. You remember that plan?
I do. And then a few years after that, some people in development were like, I can't believe people posted those. Like, we're not going to do them. I don't know.
That was the McDonald's I would go to. That was actually the easiest McDonald's for me to get to because the bus line ended there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember Capitol Park for a long time. Where Prime and Proper is where I bought my first Hot Wheels set.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, old school, old stories. But yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a public relations person a few months ago in Capitol Park talking about the things happening. And I realized in the conversation that all of my memories are like 10 years before they existed.
Oh.
And that was the moment where you're like, oh, I'm a little old, aren't I?
I hear you loud and clear.
I'm like, oh, you didn't exist. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Capitol Park is something where if someone dropped you in Capitol Park and if you had any like preconceptions about what Detroit or downtown Detroit was, you drop in Capitol Park and it's like, oh, nope, people don't believe that it's Detroit when I talk to them sometimes because there's just like this idea that Detroit looks a certain way, and Capitol Park is something that a lot of work has been done.
Yeah, I used to do kind of historic architecture walking tours through downtown. Now, I always loved bringing people into Capitol Park because you can just see so many different types of buildings that were built. You can go over that history. That's where the state capitol was, the first state capitol, in Michigan, which is why it's called Capitol Park. But it has so many historic buildings that I'm so happy were saved. And I like that this one is not within that kind of triangle. It's a little off to the side because there are definitely a couple buildings across the street from it that could use some help. And so I hope this encourages other building owners to fix those ones up on Griswold.
Well, it would connect the street wall, which is so important. If you're going to go from Campus Martius Park to Capitol Park, there is that area there on Griswold where there's a few buildings where if you're not familiar, you're going to feel a little sketch at. Now, funnily enough, and it used to be like Bob's Burgers or whatever, some sort of garage. But even before then, that site was the theater location where Harry Houdini had his last performance.
Oh, I did not know that. I knew about the last performance. I didn't know it was there, though.
Yeah, it was right there. I really think it would be great if there was a marker there. But I think there's going to have to be some work and development there first, because there's the stop building that has residents in it and all that stuff. And then there's hopefully at some point there ends up being some plans for the old First National building at the corner of Michigan and Griswold there. Now, that's another interesting one. I learned that building actually had floors lopped off of it and given a modern facade. It looked completely different, but it's the same structure as it was like for many decades, but it got the facadectomy and then the lop it off the top. And so it looks completely different, but it's actually an original structure in there.
Was that the one where a few years ago they were saying that they were going to add some floors back to it?
I think so. I think there were supposedly some plans for it. It's like, that building's supposed to be taller.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure I can find the link on historicdetroit.org or something like that. It's the kind of thing I remember Dan Austin telling me, right? This feels like a Dan Austin fact.
Yeah, it does.
A couple other things to talk about before we go. Baobab Fair has a new location, reports Axios. Now, Chef Mamba has been on this very podcast. We've watched him on the Food Network. He's found a ton of success in New Center. A lot of people are going to be excited about this East Warren location, kind of near East English Village. I'm sure within DoorDash delivery range of the Grosse Points, opening up a lot of business opportunities. What do you think? I think it's kind of cool. I mean, yeah, it's a one-story thing, but he's a chef that's attracted a lot of attention. I think it'll bring a lot of traffic to that area of Detroit.
Yeah, I think this is such a win-win situation. It's a great restaurant. They have such an amazing story coming, as refugees through Freedom House and then, opening this restaurant and giving back. It's so great. But it's also such a win for the neighborhood. There's so many great neighborhoods surrounding East Warren. So giving just another option for people to go and, bringing people from the points as well. I think this is great news.
In case people are curious, it's on East Warren at the corner of Grayton, which is just a couple blocks south of Cadieux. So like if you're on the east side and you're using Cadieux or whatever to hit the freeway, you can just make a little detour. If you're on your way back, make a little detour, pick up some great food, and then, head on your merry way.
And this is one of the neighborhoods that's been tapped kind of by the Strategic Neighborhood Fund. And so what the city and investors have kind of looked into what to do with this neighborhood, what would work best, asking the people who live there. So there's a lot of like streetscaping that's been going on, kind of new businesses taking shape, a lot of stuff happening over there.
For sure. This one we mentioned a little bit on a podcast episode last week, but because you are kind of the de facto queen of all development, I wanted to mention it to you. There's this listing on 19911 Shrewsbury in the Green Acres neighborhood, $515,000. It's kind of gone viral. This is along with another one we didn't mention over on Bewick near Jefferson in the same price range, where people are in their feelings about it one way or another. And I actually posted about it on our Instagram page, and I got so many thoughtful responses for people, because whether or not this particular house, and we'll discuss it a little bit, a lot of people are feeling like, hey, is this really worth it? Or is it something where prices are going up higher than it feels like, they can pay? There's just like a general feeling about that from multiple angles. And so sort of wanted to get your thoughts on it, Robin.
There's a few things that factor into this. Green Acres is a great neighborhood. They're really, it's been really solid, stable throughout the years. And you can get houses there, a little bit more than some neighborhoods, but definitely not $500,000. That seems not right. It's close to Palmer Park, but you can't do that. You can't pull,
Well, maybe explain a little bit for people so that they understand kind of how that works.
I mean, when you're looking at comps in the area, you got to really stay fairly close to where you are, because the neighborhoods really change quickly in Detroit. Green Acres is a really good neighborhood. It's near Sherwood Forest, which is another great neighborhood.
I hear it's the place to be.
It's just the place to be. And that's near Palmer Woods, too. I mean, these are all really beautiful neighborhoods in their own right, but not super comparable to each other. Just in like the lot size and the size of the houses. And just looking at this one, I did see it on Twitter the other day when it came up. It's a flip. I don't think this price per square foot is outrageous. It's a big house. It's a 3,000 square foot house. I'm just, from the pictures and from the quality of the pictures that are repeated through the listing, it doesn't look like the best flip in the world. And, when you do that and when you buy a $500,000 house, you want to get a decent house. You don't want things to break.
It's kind of like the quality of furnishings and things like that. Like, I noticed there was like a wine fridge or something in there, but when you start going to that level of house, I feel like there is a different expectation for fit and finish. And I didn't visit the house, obviously, but it's something where beyond the cost, beyond all the other things that happen when you buy a house in Detroit, right? Because you got pretty high tax rates and things like that. If you're going to spend that kind of money, there's kind of a threshold that goes from like middle class furnishings to high end furnishings. And I don't know what that threshold is per square feet or anything, but I feel like that's kind of the case.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell because they do repeat the pictures, so we don't really get a great idea of what the whole house looks like. It doesn't seem to have a lot of the historical qualities that we see in houses like that. The outside is beautiful. It's a nice looking house, but yeah, I wonder. I might have to call up my favorite real estate agent and see if we can just take a look this weekend, maybe.
Right. Another one that shared around was over at 1464 Bewick on the east side, as I said, near Jefferson, near the Joe Barry subdivision in Indian Village, but not in those places. And that one was for $499,000. And I feel like it is, kind of a pretty place. On the other hand, it feels like some of the listing. How do you feel about this when listing photos are like CG generated?
Yeah. So I just pulled up the listing. These pictures don't look right. It's weird. I mean, this beautiful picture of the outside of the house. Okay. It gets the grade treatment that a lot of the, renovators, flippers are doing, which I hope changes at some point. This is weird because it's close to neighborhoods where they could ask this price, but it's not in a neighborhood that could ask this price. I feel like it's going to be on the market for a while. Hasn't it already been on the market for a while?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, so they started at $636,000. Well, I'm curious to see how much this one goes down in price.
Yeah, because I think it's a good 12, 13 blocks outside of Indian Village. And when you get to that point, you're not really in it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with some of these listings. I don't feel anybody who lives in Detroit would buy it, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and we talked a little bit about this on that other episode about the out-of-town arbitrage, right? So it may seem like really expensive to us, but, a $500,000 house to get this much square footage in another city is a deal.
Yeah, I get that. There's a lot that goes into that.
100%. Before I let you go, as kind of our resident biggest Tigers fan, opening day is coming. Home opener is coming. Just in a couple of minutes, what is your feeling and vibe? We'll get into it more later as we get even closer, but what is your feeling going into the 2023 Tiger season?
So here's my feeling. We're getting close to the end of spring training, which I don't think a lot of people have been paying attention to, because at the same time that's been going on, the World Baseball Classic has been going on. And this is literally the best baseball that anybody has seen in years. It was fantastic. It was just like the level of play was really high and the fans were super into it. It was so fun to watch, especially that last game between Japan and the U.S. with Shohei Ohtani going up against Mike Trout. It was incredible. And to see Japan win, I was really happy for them because they were so into it. And I remember when Tigers fans have been so into it, and it's been a while, and it's going to be a while, Jer.
Are we rebuilding?
Oh, so last year, there were higher hopes going into last season. We had gotten Javi Baez, we had gotten Eduardo Rodriguez, we had some great rookies starting, and nothing really worked the way that it should have worked last year. Javi Baez didn't play up to his level. Rodriguez kind of left for personal reasons during the season. Spencer Torkelson just had an awful year. Really, really bad rookie year. Riley Green showed promise. I think he's going to be really fun to watch. Really exciting. So towards the end of last year, they fired Al Avila. It was a great day for me. My phone just blew up. I was so happy. They hired Scott Harris, who was with the Giants before, and he has a very analytical mindset. And I think we're going to see more happen with analytics in the back office, so behind the scenes. He's also gotten some new coaches, like in the minor and major league level. He didn't really get a lot of players in the off season, though. And he also got rid of some of our bullpen, which was one of the better parts of last year. So Tigers fans are used to having a bad bullpen. Get ready for it again. Last year, our hitters just had a horrible time getting runs. Like, it was historically low at one point. We were just not scoring any runs. So I just hope that there is some momentum on the team this year, that, something starts happening, that our players stay healthy. It's going to be Miguel Cabrera's last year. And he had a lot of fun last year. And he got his 3,000th hit, and it was really great. I hope he gets kind of the send-off that he deserves, because nobody has more fun playing baseball than Miggy. And it's so great to see him out there. So I hope he brings the fans in, and I hope he can kind of help spark something in the team, that they can have a decent season. But I would just set the expectations kind of low at this point.
So when you say decent season, what is the best you think you can hope for?
We lost 96 games last year. It was a bad year last year, so...
Any improvement is improvement?
It really is. I mean, I just want the team to score runs. Like, I don't even know how much we're going to win. The Central is not a hard division. I just want the players to start playing better. I just want something to start working. I want the younger players to get better and make improvements. That's what I want to see. That's my expectation. It's going to be a tough year, but I hope we start to see improvements.
For sure. And I mean, going to Comerica Park is always kind of a fun time to sit out there and enjoy things. And, in a couple of years, or in fact, even sooner than that, they may be breaking ground on that possible residential building right next to the ballpark. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see, because one thing I love about Comerica Park is that wherever you sit, you get this kind of amazing skyline view of Detroit, just depending on where you sit in the park. So it's going to be it's just going to be weird to see something so close to the park being built. We've seen a few things go up right across Woodward in recent years, but to see one really happening in the parking lot there, it's going to be different. And, they plan to break ground in July if everything goes as planned, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. All right, Robin Runyan, Urbanize Detroit. Thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate you stopping by, and until next time.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, Jer.
As always, feedback welcome, dailydetroit@gmail.com. I've heard the feedback that some don't like doing the monthly membership thing, so if you want to do a one-time support of what we're doing, consider buying us a coffee or two at buymeacoffee.com/dailydetroit. That's buymeacoffee.com/dailydetroit. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit. We'll talk tomorrow.